This is George Dearsley of Avante Media with Simon Williams, the man who invented the ethical stance for the cooperative bank. Simon, what is the secret of marketing?
There's so many definitions. You haven't asked for a definition, you've asked for the secret, but I think the definition of meeting consumer needs profitably, I think a focus on that is just so critical, and that's not a secret. Um, I always think marketing strategy is just really about two things. It often gets so overcomplicated. It's about defining your target market and then working out your proposition to that target market. And everything else is just complexity around that. To me, now, defining target market may be broad, and that's fine, but actually working out your proposition or your pitch, I think is. It's now a very technical subject, is marketing. So there is a lot of science around it. Definitely, there's a lot of process in working out what your proposition is. It's not just a brainstorm, but ultimately, that is what the marketeer's job is to do. Is to come up with that proposition. And then there's a whole extra set of processes about getting your proposition to the customer, in front of a customer. You design a better mousetrap. People do not flock to you. They need to know you've got a better mousetrap.
Where did the idea for the ethical stance come from?
It came through slogging through the market research cupboard, basically, for me. I mean, when I joined the Co-operative Bank in 1988, I was looking for a brand proposition, and I didn't actually have a preconceived idea of what it should be. But like all businesses, quite a lot of market research already existed, and I spent as much time as I could slogging through the old research that had been done. And it was while I was going through that, I was reading some quant data on why customers had joined the bank compared to why customers had joined other banks. And it wasn't that different, frankly. It was parental recommendation or the nearest branch to college or work. But there was an intriguing 5%, a real minority, 5%, that had a reason that no one else had, which was that they'd chosen the Co-operative Bank for ethics.
And suddenly a light went on.
And I mean, it's just interesting. Where was that from? What's that all about? And I mean, the bank didn't have an ethical policy. It had refused to deal with South Africa in the years of apartheid, where others, such as Barclays, for example, were heavily involved with South Africa. But there wasn't much really in the background, so it was clear that people had inferred something about the Co-operative Bank because of its name and because of an understanding that the cooperative model, even if people don't remember Rochdale Pioneers and the rest of it, is somehow a bit different and is founded on some principles. So there was an inference that came out of the name.
To the board or whatever, and you said, "I've got this idea." Did they think you're crazy? What was the reaction?
I actually tested it quietly. I thought, if this is going to work anywhere, it will work with students. So I did some market research, some groups amongst students, and the idea bombed. It was a disaster. This was, remember, in the sort of last years of the Conservative government, I suppose. But, well, no, it wasn't in the last years, actually. It was in the middle of it, or still then. So that was in 1989.
These were focus groups?
These were focus groups, and it was yet another demonstration to me that focus groups don't work very well for new ideas, because people need repeated exposure to a new idea before it gets through. And in fact, actually, I think focus groups are quite poor for new product research. I got to distrust them more and more in my marketing career. So it failed. So I buried the research and no one ever saw it.
And how did you sustain the idea even though you buried the research?
it just carried on working up the idea, and then working with an ad agency to design some good ads that would communicate the idea more powerfully. And that then started researching better when we actually got a good ad treatment around it.
And when you say it bombed with the students, do you mean you just sort of asked them, or they filled in a form or what, and you said to them, well, would this influence your choice of bank? If
it was focus groups and different ethical issues such as the fair trade or tobacco or pornography or the arms trade were discussed with students. And how do you feel about a bank that refused to finance the arms trade? The ideas were discussed in the raw without a sort of execution around it, without an advertising execution, and they just weren't that interested. And actually, as
you should have launched it in 1966.
Yeah, well, maybe 68 or something.
68
would have been a good time to launch it. But I think it was think about that time, student unemployment. It was a predominantly Tory era, and actually, as my career sort of got more into the ethics side, I have found out since that ethical issues chime more from around about the age of 25 than they do with younger people. There may even be something sort of a bit biologically programmed about that. Once you start to have a family of your own, you start to have a responsibility about the world that they're going to grow up in. I'm really hypothesising here, but I have definitely found in other bits of research and other bits of research other people have undertaken as well, that whole ethical thing kicks in more in the early to mid-20s rather than late teenage.